Well, I'd like to officially welcome everyone to Visualizing Business Processes and Research with AI. What we're going to talk today about is unlocking the power of intelligent mapping and also helping you automate these taxonomies, these categorization structures that build the foundation of your knowledge. So before we get started and jumping into all the different features as well as examples, I want to just go over some key ways that you can think about and approach organizing your information. Because this is about business knowledge and sort of team knowledge sharing, it does require a little bit more of a thoughtful approach in terms of making sure your structure sort of withstands the test of time for not just you and your personal hobbies or aspirations, but for your organization as well. So there's many approaches, of course, that you're using that you may not even be aware of to organizing information. First of all, the basic one that everyone uses, whether you're just doing a file directory and throwing some documents in a shared drive, is what you'd call formal classification. Formal classification tends to be very hierarchical in nature, where you're starting with a general topic and then drilling down into specifics. Formal classification can actually be done really nicely with AI. Because you can start with, we'll get into our AI settings, selecting categories of your topic of interest, and then build the knowledge from general to specific. So that's used, of course, in a lot of research settings, in a lot of academic settings. I know we've got a lot of people in the academic organizations on the call as well. And that's mostly done through our parent and child relationship in the brain. And we'll talk about that, sort of moving from top down. Now, in my opinion, as wonderful as the associative and relational nature of the brain is, some level of formal classification, unless you want to be really progressive and interesting in your brain, is required. So we're going to get to these wonderful functional categorizations, which I like to call the relationship maps, where you move beyond the hierarchy. But to start off your brain with, you do need that formal classification to lay the foundation. And that takes me to sort of our next category below, which I like to call functional categorization. Functional categorization sort of relates and bleeds into what we're also going to be talking about, which is mapping out your business processes. And one of the great things about technologies like TheBrain that offer these visual components is, I don't know how many organizations I've walked into, and you've got your shared file drive. You might even be sharing something on Microsoft SharePoint or an intranet, and then you have your Visio diagram on the other side. And it's like, okay, I've got this business process here I have to follow to close this deal, but all my information is over here in this file drive. So one of the cool things about this complete intelligent approach to accessing information is all the information that you need can actually be organized in a way that you can see the process as it's happening. So rather than storing all your sales presentations in a drive, you could actually have that presentation in your phase 2 of your sales cycle. And what that does when you get into mapping out your business processes in your brain and knowledge base is that really helps you stay in tune with where you need to go. It's what we like to also refer to as goal-directed visualization, because the information is placed in a way that you are moving towards a goal. That is really great for companies that have complex support processes, complex onboarding for new employees, and we're going to cover that. And you can also blur the lines here and start with a more functional or formal classification and move into business processing. And then beyond that, of course, one of the nice things about the brain is those associative connections and the ability to create links and thoughts and tags. And these are what we like to call just dynamically generated, curated, and sort of most used, organized, and you can create pins and all kinds of things. So these are just sort of 4 kind of key approaches to organizing information. And with that, I'm actually going to go ahead and show you some examples here. This particular example is called DBL Equity, and this is actually a financial investment company. And so pieces of information in the brain are what you call a thought, and a thought can represent any type of information. So when I click on a thought, it's going to trigger all related pieces of information. So in this particular example, this is an example of more of a business mapping where they have a certain way that they like to close deals that they invest with. So they have a deal cycle. So each area or primary milestone in that process is represented as a thought or a phase. So in this case, the way they close deals is they start with due diligence. And due diligence can be anything from checking out the laboratory research to looking up industry analysis to financial and intellectual review to doing a management background. So in this particular phase, you can see clearly if I'm a new financial analyst coming into this company, I know exactly what I need to do. So if maybe I've gone to Harvard Research Labs and researched this company we want to invest in, but did I check out the management background? No, I've got things to do. And of course, this is the area where we'll get into this, where you can actually drag and drop documents or launch a document to actually kind of look at that information. So again, we're kind of going from not just a process map, but to embedding the information that you need in that actual process. And then number two, structuring the deal, which involves letters of intent, term sheets, and of course you'd have all that wonderful information. Underwriting the deal involves a number of insurance forms, risk assessment, things like that, and then closing that particular deal as well, which has its own steps with escrow and funds transfer and things like that. So you can see how something that might seem simple in terms of investing in a new company or property actually has a lot of steps that you want to follow. And by creating a network of information and displaying that information intelligently, it seems quite simple. It seems like, hey, I can do this. I've got this. And that's sort of the goal when you're looking at creating these business maps. So in addition to visualizing the steps, of course, we can go ahead and create new knowledge. So maybe in this particular company, I would like to create knowledge on technology trends for investment. So I'm going to create this thought. And from here, I can come in and drag and drop information. Maybe I'm interested in robotics or a number of different organizations. From there, what I can do is I can actually use the AI button to build. So if I want to go ahead and add technology trends in AI, list key thinkers in this space, I can go ahead and do that. Now, there's a couple things. I can set the context thought, where in this case, because I'm just starting a new section of this brain, I'm not going to go ahead and do that. And I can ask the AI if I want to give new categories to build a taxonomy, or I might want to actually get specific lists of things. So I'm going to go ahead and create that thought structure. And then I can see that it has a few different categories here on artificial intelligence, natural language processing, machine learning, and that looks good. But in reviewing this, I'm actually going to come back in here and discard this because I actually thinking about making this a little bit more broader. So I'm actually going to do technology trends in robotics and AI. And I'm going to change this thought here. And I'm going to go back up to my AI button here. And I'm going to broaden it out. So it's not just AI, it's a little bit about robotics. In this case, I'm actually going to go ahead and select categories. Now, if I want to add a little bit more to my AI query, I can certainly do this. If I want to add list specific companies And I'm going to go to list and generate my thought structure. And now what the AI is doing is it's going ahead and it's bringing back different categories for me. And if I want to go ahead and keep this area on robotics, I can. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and accept it. I can accept this, or I can continue to develop this. And some of the companies that it's brought up are Boston Dynamics, iRobotics, and SoftBanks. And so this area in robotics, I actually really like this. I don't necessarily, I've kept this area on automation, but I really like the robotics section. So I'm going to take this robotics section and move it up and really focus now on building my knowledge from this area that AI has given me. So from there, of course, I can go ahead and I can add an icon. So I'll go ahead and select an icon here. That makes sense. Actually, I don't like that icon. Let me just go ahead and get something else that's a little bit more interesting. I'll go into technology. And use this. I can continue to build my knowledge and talk about what we want to do. Let's say 2024 trends in robotics. And now what I'm doing is I'm actually contributing. So let me just fix that thought right here. To build my knowledge. And from there, the other thing that we can do is we can actually go out to the web and we can actually do a search web feature as well. So if I want to integrate existing information with my AI structure, I can do that. So maybe there's some news and I can actually take this full search, for instance, if I want to keep this as like a placeholder on that thought, I can drag that right there and drop that. So now I've got that query automatically appearing as well. So I've got some AI combined with some new content coming into my brain. So it's pretty easy to organize. Now I want to pivot back a little bit to business processes and give you a few more examples before we get into a little bit more in AI. Another example in terms of sort of using the network structure to visualize a business process is can be really quite nicely done in IT management. So for instance, in this particular area, we have a whole taxonomy on technology innovators. And actually this particular area was generated by selecting list in AI to generate this. But then we have another area here that talks about our development process and our execution. And here we've got our implementation phases. So in this particular example, you can see that you have phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there you would have the information under that. So this is an example, or what I'd consider a hybrid model, of where you actually have a business process that is married with tech taxonomy as well. So this is kind of how you can kind of combine things. Now I have one more example that we're going to cover and play a little bit more with AI in this particular area. So this particular company is a fitness and life company. And as you kind of start to build your knowledge and map out your research area, when you're thinking about functional ways of categorizing your knowledge, a lot of people like to start with their standard department mapping and then broaden and then move into specifics. So in this case, we've got marketing, we've got product design, research, web development, and IT. And of course, I can go to my active projects area and go ahead and look at any number of campaigns that we have going. And one of the nice things about TheBrain is it's going to be able to aggregate all this information, and then I can actually share this information. So I'm just going to go to my online settings and show you what's happening in this brain. So if I look at my account information, or my brain access and sharing, you can see that I'm the administrator of this brain, but I also have Brigitte in our company as a reader. I have Jay and Matt as the administrator, and I also have Juan as a reader. So I'm actually defining who gets to do what to this particular brain, and I can continue to add, additional users from my organization. This particular brain, because it's a marketing example, is listed as public, but the default, of course, would be unlisted. But if you want to share a brain, which a lot of people in the educational organization like to publish large bodies of knowledge on our cloud, that's something that you can do here as well. So this particular brain is not just used by me, it's used by everyone else in my company. And one of the advantages is we can continue to build and share that knowledge. So let's just come back to the area here on the sustainable design. And I'm going to go ahead and go to my sportswear campaign. So in this particular example, I'd like to think about how we can actually mitigate the risks of what they call fast fashion. So I've got a thought in my brain already on the impacts of fast fashion. So I'm going to go ahead and link to that. And this is also connected to an eco clothing line that we have. So one of the nice things about the brain is you can have one piece of information effectively located under multiple categories. And this is what we think about as sort of the interlocking hierarchy. So this particular concept of fast fashion, which is basically producing as much as you can for as cheaply as you can, is a very hot topic within the apparel industry. And there's a lot of debate around, if that's a good thing, because it does bring the prices down for and makes things less affordable for consumers, but at the same time, it does have impacts on the environment. So this is an area that I'm interested in researching. So I'm going to build a knowledge base for my team so that we can kind of think about how we navigate this, if we can do costs, or how this fits into sustainable design. So again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just click on that topic name that's already in my brain, use the AI button, and I'm going to talk about mitigating. So I'm going to put in the word mitigating impacts of fast fashion. So in this case, categories aren't necessarily a bad thing. So I'm going to go ahead. If I did list, they'd probably give you more specifics to how to do this. In this case, I'm building out a knowledge. The creativity index here sort of lets you know how much I guess leaps of faith you want to take with your AI, how creative it'll go. I'm going to go ahead and just generate the thought structure. I like to generate downward. So it's going to go ahead and generate, and it's bringing in some interesting things. Now I do have the option to kind of look at things, and you can see everything's highlighted here before I accept. And in this case, this isn't bad. I don't mind this, but I'm going to redo it, and I'm going to do it with list mode just to get a little bit more specifics so you can see what that looks like as well for my taxonomy. So we're going to regenerate this here. And now this is interesting because it's getting a little bit more specific, thinking, I'm creating some categories on ethical labor practices, sustainable materials, and I'm going to go ahead and actually accept this. So now what I've done is I've sort of used AI, and I could continue to develop any particular area to build this base taxonomy for my team so we can kind of begin to research what we need to do. And I'm going to go ahead and look at these other areas. And this particular area, I do have another thought on sustainable design. And it's right here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a connection. And so what I'm doing now is I'm sort of building my knowledge base. So this area on sustainable materials is now connected to all my relevant research. And what you can see here is there's kind of many ways to look at information. You might have some web links. So here, this is an interesting article on a different product that's came out, and there's a press release on this particular article, and this is web-based. In other cases, I might just want to take a note on sustainable design as well and do that. And of course, I can use AI to continue to generate my notes as well. So if I want to come in here and generate a note through AI, I can do that. So I'll just create another note, generate a note, and I can set the context. I can set word count, creativity. I don't want it too creative in this case. I actually only want about 250 words, just to give the team a little bit more information on sustainable design. I'm not feeling that creative, so I'm going to get AI to do this for me. And what it's going to do is generate that note for me. And now, again, what you'll notice when I use the AI to create that note is I have the ability to accept, redo, or discard. And in this case, I'm actually going to accept it. I like what I have here, and I've just added this note. It's a little bit more thorough than what I have, so I'm going to take that note, and I'm just going to delete, and I'm building this way as well. So this is another example of just how you can use AI to kind of get to jumpstart your knowledge base, whether it's just a single note or a whole section, like I'm going to do here with sustainable materials. That's up to you. So now I'm going to go back up to AI, and I'm actually going to just create categories of sustainable materials for, I'll just say, clothing production. So you notice in this case, I'm actually adding just a little bit more context to the AI query. And in this case, I am going to set the context thought. What the context thought does, it enables your AI to look further into your brain. In this case, I'm going to set the context thought for sustainable design. So I'm looking for sustainable materials for clothing production. Under sustainable design, I'm actually going to generate a category structure. Not too creative. I just want to get the basics. I'm keeping this at about 35%, and I'm going to hit generate thoughts. And we'll see what AI gives me. So from here, I've got some interesting ideas, and I actually really like, in this case, that it's given me some specifics. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this, no doubt, because the creativity index was a little bit further, and I love the idea of hemp fabric, recycled polyester, organic cotton, biodegradable, all these different things, can now be continued to grown on or learned upon by my team. So that's kind of just the basics of mapping. There's one other area in here that I want to show you. It is in the product development life cycle. And this is an example here of how I actually started this area. I actually asked AI to create me some thoughts on a product development life cycle. But what I then have done is I've come in and I've actually created different phases on top of that knowledge taxonomy. So that's the other way of doing it. If you want to kind of start with AI, once you've kind of got a base structure, and we might get into this a little bit later on as he's demoing a bit more on link types and thought types, is you can add context with phase one. So in this particular area of the this company is called Life Fitness. Maybe I've done my sustainable design research. Now I need to actually move into product development. So the child thoughts here actually represent a phase of production. So phase one is conceptualization. And under conceptualization, I've got different things that I have to do, from cost analysis and budgeting to feasibility, and phase two to prototyping, where I'm looking at product design, research mark, and each phase is listed in my particular brain. And I can go ahead and look at this kind of in more of an expanded view as well. If I want to see distant thoughts on this area, or if I want to come in here and actually even blow this up in more of an outline view, I can actually get a nice clear vision on what needs to be done in each phase of my company now that I've done my research.
So great. I'm going to share my screen now. And the example that I have for you today is I'm in a brain called Scout Health Solutions. Now, all the information in this particular brain is fictitious. It was actually built after meeting someone at a conference that was using the brain for their pharmaceutical company. They had real information. They were doing all of their medical research. keeping track of clients and so forth. It was just such a great brain, but it was completely proprietary. But I was really lucky to see this person's brain. And so this is a brain that has been developed and created sort of in the style of that other user's brain. And as you can see, we've got areas of research that we're really focusing on as a company. This is a shared brain with multiple people interacting and taking different responsibilities for different thoughts and projects. You can see we're taking a close look at specific medical conditions that our company provides care for in different ways, medications that we produce. And let's go ahead and jump into the key features that I wanted to share with you, and something that is very unique to the brain and is really makes the argument for storing data and collecting data and information in the brain over a file and folder directory. You put something in a folder, here's all the research that I've done on atrial fibrillation. And these are the three products that my company makes that address these issues. But what we can do is we can actually define the relationship between two thoughts within the brain. Why is thought A connected to thought B? In a file and folder structure, it's a subcategory of some type, but you really don't know the granular clarity of what that relationship is. And here, if I go into a particular area, we're researching atrial fibrillation, and I've got three different products down below. Dialoxin, which is non-FDA approved. If I get a call from somebody in New Jersey saying, hey, I want to talk to you about your company products specifically for the market of helping with atrial fibrillation, dialoxin is not a product that we're going to be discussing. It's non-FDA approved. Why is it even in my brain? Well, because it is FDA approved for heart valve disease. So I need to know where it works and where it doesn't work, so the brain can share with you, all the different types of relationships, good and bad. ACE is FDA approved. That's competitor medication that we are keeping an eye on. Any public information we have on that, we retain that to better understand what our competition is doing out there. And undergoing clinical trials is Liforex. And so I get down to Liforex. I can see it is FDA approved for some, clinical trials for others, people that are working on this account. Damien, for example, he's the label expert. I've got a question about the label for this product. I know that I need to go to Damien. However, Laura also works at my company. She actually takes Liforex. She's got a first-person sort of feedback on side effects or benefits or what have you. So again, why would I even have this person linked to a thought in the brain in a file and folder directory? I'd have no way of defining that relationship. There's an employee that actually takes our own company medicine for medical reasons, and they're just a really great resource that we can tap into, and there I've just identified it in the brain. So how are these created? You can, just like you can click on a thought to add notes and content over on the side, you can click on a link between two thoughts and add notes for the link to clarify that relationship, or double click to set up a thought label. And if it's a label you're going to be using over and over again, you can actually set up a link type. So notice I've got a long list of link types. If I want a new link type, I've got a pencil here. And let's say the label details for Liforex 2.0 are in review. I don't have a label for that down below, so I'll just manually say in review. So I know when I return to this thought, or anyone on my team that I'm sharing this brain with knows that, wait a minute, the labels are in review. They're not quite, approved for public consumption at this time in this scenario. And I can further classify information. And this is a question that came in earlier about tagging. What are tags in the brain? These thought types that we've seen, Shelley's brain had thought types. They also had thought tags. I don't think we clicked on any of those quite yet through Shelley's brain. So let me share a little bit about thought types and tags. Number one, a thought type, only one thought type can be assigned to a thought. It's a very specific category that thought falls into. I think Shelley used the example of moving thoughts through phases. You can have phase one, phase two, phase three, and so forth. And so that becomes the thought type. When you look at that thought, in this case, I look at this thought and I know it's a medication. It's a medication that my company makes, and I give all of those medications that my company makes a little gold star. Anytime it has a red star, I know that's a competitor medication. So those are thought types. They add additional clarity and classification to thoughts. Thought tags, multiple thought tags can be assigned to an individual thought. And here again, it's in a scenario, when do you use thought types and tags? It's a very personal decision that you make, or collaboratively as a team, you can sit down and decide, all right, these are going to be our different categories. These are our different tags. One tag type that I really like, especially in a collaborative environment, is setting up thought tags for people, so that we know the people that are associated or reviewing a particular topic. I'm going to go down to this label details. So I've got some great notes on all the label details over to the right. I've got the actual label for this product. It's a PDF file. Before this goes public, it's in review, right? So before this goes public, I want Shelly to put her eyes on this and read through it. Maybe do some spell checking. Is it working? Are we ready to go public? So how does that work in the business environment? What do? We pick up the phone. We give Shelly a call. Let's have a meeting. I send her an email, and so forth. TheBrain makes it a lot easier with thought tags. I can click to modify this thought in the thought properties display, but I'm going to assign a tag for Shelly. And this is also high priority. So I'll check that tag as well. I've got two tags on this thought for Shelly and high priority. Anyone that comes to this thought will see that Shelly is currently reviewing this thought, and it's a high priority item. If I want to see what are all the high priority items, do I have any high priority items assigned to me? I can actually click, and you can get to your tags up here as well. There's drop-down menus for all the tags you have in your brain or all the thought types. And here you can see are some phases. If we have some time, we'll get into those today as well. So these are my high priority items. Wherever they are in your brain, they could be peppered throughout a very massive brain structure that you've created. But here and there's some really important steps that you need to keep track of. You can tag it high priority. So high priority is a new meeting with Edward. He's one of our label experts. We're going to be promoting him to a new position, and we need to expedite that process. The label details for one of our products need to be reviewed by Shelly. And it's high priority that we get this done because we've got a competitor out there in the same field as well. So I've got a clear picture of what everyone is focused on within my organization. And it's simply a best practice. When Shelly logs in on Monday morning, maybe she took a long weekend, or she wasn't in the meeting where we assigned, Shelly's the person to take a look at this meeting label. When Shelly logs in, we've got brains that we share here at TheBrain Technologies, and we utilize these tags as well for ourselves. We know what all of our responsibilities are. It's a great way for me to tell everyone else what I'm focused on, but also without that extra meeting and the phone calls and so forth, I can assign projects to other people. So Shelly can go to her pin and simply see, like, all right, well, I'm doing some research for the final disclosure on LifeRx product. I guess I need to review the label details. What does Shelly need to do? Well, that could be outlined in the note for that particular thought. And here's another tag that she has, and gosh, I don't even know what this is. She's working on oleuropein. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but that's an antioxidant, which is some human longevity research that my company is focused on. And that's another really great example, tying back to that question that came in earlier about tags. The question was also about flows, workflows, and processes. With files and folders, it's a very linear direction that you're moving through. And you get down to a particular file, there might be shortcuts to that file in other folders out on your network or on your C drive. But a file and folder directory has no way of visualizing that. Once you get to that file, you're reading that file, it's in the folder that you came from. Little do you know, it's related to so many other pieces of information. It has multiple, in our case, parent thoughts. just like if you get into one of our medications. I mean, we've seen it in a few different places in this brain, but this is just one example. Liferex, it is a medication. We're clinical trials for atrial fibrillation and coronary artery disease. If I just stored a Liferex folder inside medications, I'd have to read through the label or do a little bit of extra research. That's time, that's efficiency. I like to visualize it right in front of me, and the brain is a great way to do that with those cross references. And if this is going through a workflow, phase one, phase two, I can connect those to as parents as well and really get a clear picture of where my company is at, where my project is at, or my focus should be on any particular thought or subject. Another feature that I want to share with you, let me just jump really quickly to the new client procedure. And this really sort of trims down those thought labels and how they can become effective, and also answers the questions about creating flows within your brain. This is a process that we have to follow anytime we're signing on a new distributor for our products, our new clients. The very first thing that happens is we have to have a face-to-face meeting. So what I've done here is in the brain, I've outlined the procedure, the process itself, rather than just one document saying, do all this. It might go in different directions depending on the outcome of your first face-to-face meeting, for example. I've got all of sort of our company procedure on steps that we need to take and so forth for setting these meetings up. I can have documents associated with, be sure to bring these PDFs, these flyers or pamphlets or what have you to the first meeting. And the question is, was that meeting a success? Quite simply, yes or no. And it can take me in two different directions. If it's yes, all right, I need to send them the client non-disclosure form. And where do I get that? I've got that associated with a thought, with a contract. If there's questions, I can contact Betty and so forth. If that first meeting was not a success, then we need to finesse the deal a little bit. So we follow a different path, takes us through a different set of directions. I've got my step-by-step procedures for what I do for this phase. And if everything looks good, in 2 months, I check in again. So first face-to-face meeting didn't work out so well. We don't just close the door and hang up. We go back and we knock on the door again after we take a few very specific steps. The 2-month check-in, again, I can have what the procedure there is outlined in the notes, and it takes me in two different directions. Still not on board. We're going to check in a year from now because we may have new products. Things have changed. There's new information to share. If it's yes, then we move back into that client non-disclosure, go through the contract, and go through the next phases of all these processes. And if there's a maybe step, I can simply add that in along the way. So maybe is send more info. So I create the new thought. I'm going to label this so my whole team knows this is what you do when that dispute doesn't work out. I'll click and to open up a thought type. And I do not have a maybe, so I get to create one. So I'll click on that pencil and create the maybe thought type. So I can very easily say a new type, maybe. And again, I can double click to edit that. So I'll go in and we'll say maybe is a yellow link. So I can really, clarify the structure that we're going to go through for this particular workflow. Now, the next feature that I want to share with you is we've talked a little bit about thought tags and these link labels. Let's go back, and Shelley touched on this earlier. There's so many different types of information out there in the world. Now we're collecting information from AI and bringing it into the brain. We're integrating that with our own research. You search the web, you find something interesting, you bring that into the brain, your documents and so forth. The brain is a really, really great tool to bring all those disparate information sources together. I often talk about, where do you save all of your most important web pages? Your browser bookmarks and favorites? What if there's a document associated with one of those web pages, a procedure that you need to follow, passwords and so forth? Where do you save all that information? In your file and folder directory? There's an instant disconnect there. And the brain is a great way to bring all those disparate information sources together. Now, Shelley showed you how we can drag and drop into the brain. I think she did. If she didn't, I'll do it again. So I've got a sample directory here.
Did not
of
get to
some.
drag and drop,
Okay.
so
I
please do.
wasn't
And
sure.
that's
I was
great.
answering
Yeah.
questions and I
No,
wasn't quite sure. So I'm glad you.
yeah, I showed some documents, but I wasn't sure. I wanted to leave you enough time. But yeah, great. Let's get to the integrated data because some people were
Absolutely.
asking. Now
So
we've covered the taxonomy. How do we bring all that wonderful stuff in? I
yeah,
did
let's bring
drag and
some of
drop
our own
a
native
URL
information.
or a
Okay.
Google search is what I
Okay.
did.
Okay, great. So I have got a file here. There it is. I've got some sample documents that, let's say I'm going to go back to that LifeRx, and let's say we're going to have a 2024 launch. Now, there's a lot that's going into this launch. We're going to have people that involve processes, checklists, notes, meetings, everything. It's all going to come together in this one location. And again, regardless of those disparate information sources. So let's just start off here. I've got a launch party planning document rather than keeping that out in a file and folder somewhere because the catering menu is online and other parts and pieces are in different locations. Let's click and drag and simply bring that into the brain. Now, when I drag and drop into the brain, I am moving that file into the brain. That's the setting that I've chosen for the brain application. You can click on options and go into preferences. If you're on a Mac, you would click on the brain preferences. And on the behavior tab, you can specify how you want the brain to behave for drag and drop. And there's so many additional features and settings here that you can review as well to really make the brain work best for your environment. Like I said earlier, this is a team brain environment. So when I bring a file into the brain, I want everyone else to have access to that file as well. So I like to drag and drop to move that file. There's keyboard shortcuts, so you can override those settings, or I could go to a particular attachment, right click, and move or copy that file out of the brain. So you can always manipulate how that content is associated. But I'm dragging and dropping my own documents. If I find something online, you saw Shelly drag and drop from the web browser, we can bring that content in again. Someone emails you something from Dropbox or their Google Drive, or there's a Google Doc that you're all sharing. You can bring those into the brain as well. So now suddenly you don't have URLs and files and links and so forth. You have actual instant access to all of the content that you need. So I do have my Google Docs open, and I'll just grab one of my docs. Here's a document that I'm working on for team roles for our launch party. Google Docs behaves just like another web browser. It's got a unique URL. So great, I can simply drag and drop just as I would a web page into the brain. Now, Google Docs names its content a little bit differently. I'm in edit mode, so it named this thought edit. Not a problem. I can go back to it and planning, shared planning document. I'll call this shared planning doc. And the really great thing, and this is new to the Brain 14, is that we can edit this Google Doc right here in the Brain's built-in browser. Just like you saw on Shelly's machine, web pages were loading up right there in the content area. Google Docs will do the same as well. So, oops, yeah, I'll just add some gibberish up here at the top. I type really slow, so I'll just add some text there so you can see I'm actively editing this document, and it's updating in the browser in the background too. Right there, I never have to leave the brain to access those files, regardless of where they're coming from, web pages and so forth. And another feature to share with you is, let me get back to my notes. I keep my notes in another brain on another screen, by the way. A little bit more about the topic of collaboration. So I've shared with you link types, the people tags, bringing files from disparate information sources, the AI integration that Shelly worked with today. I've got another feature to share with you there. But also let's talk a little bit about those collaboration features. Shelly shared with us, where we can share a brain with another user. I want to just expand on that a little bit and share with you that if your content of the brain is something that you want to share with the client with the general public. Maybe you've made a brain on a topic that you find to be absolutely fascinating. We have created a brain, and Shelley opened this brain earlier. I'll drag this one up to this brain window. This software development brain is actually a public brain that is public accessible. There's no proprietary information in this particular brain. It's a really, really interesting brain that goes even so much further beyond technology innovators and so forth. As we saw earlier, we can get into in-depth details on programming languages. Here's Java. Here's all the subcomponents of Java, how Java can be used, what it's compatible with, and so on. This is an amazing, really detailed, complex structure that is all about software development and IT management, all aspects of it, and it's publicly accessible. So we sync our brain to the cloud. You've seen us click on the sync icon. So great, there's online access to this brain for me, the brain administrator. If I go into online and brain access and sharing, as we saw on Shelley's screen, this is where we can add additional users, collaborators, whether they're other admins or readers, writers, and so forth. But at the very top is where I can allow unlisted users. That means you don't even need a brain account. You don't even need to know what the brain is. I can copy this URL. I can tweet it out to the world, share it with a vendor or a client or what have you, and they can go in depth to see this really fantastic structure that I've made through the web client. They don't even need to have the brain installed, and they can just see the brain online. So that's another really great way to take sort of collaboration or accessibility, visualization of your data to the next level. And with that, Shelley, I did have one example of, the question came up about, oops, well, let's not save that, close. Yes, there we go. I did have one example. Someone asked about using AI as sort of a writing assistant.
Yes,
If you,
that was Jean, and I was just going to
okay,
post that question because I put in our last webinar and our tutorial, but I was kind of like, well, I want to show. So yeah, now we're going to move officially into the Q&A area. And Jean was asking about, and I did a little bit of that where I generated one note, but clearly we've been focusing a lot on this session on building a taxonomy and categorization structure, but equally powerful is using the brain as a writer's assistant. So we do have some time. So yes, let's go ahead
great.
and cover that for Jean and everyone else who was interested in that functionality.
Excellent. And we have covered this in previous webinars as well in detail and spent almost the whole webinar talking about all the AI functionality that is available just in writing assistants. But I'll share sort of a high level overview of some of them that I particularly like. So here I'm on a note that is, I'm doing my own research. I'm trying to get my company interested in more holistic options for heart health and longevity and so forth. So I've got a note that I've been collecting over time on omega-3 fatty acids. Really exciting topic that I chose for us. But regardless, I'm about to ready to walk into a meeting to tell my boss this is where we need to focus our efforts moving forward for this company in the future. There's a lot of information here. I've been jotting down notes and so forth on this topic for maybe weeks, maybe months, and so forth. Where I'm not going to sit there and just read line for line through the whole document. So I'm going to take a note that I've created and I'll go to the AI and I'll just ask it to summarize the note. So I've got a very long note there, but in short, look at this. That's what it really comes down to. 4 or 5 key taglines that I can take with me. These are the 4 reasons why we need to move forward in this direction with this project. And AI just simply took that entire note, maybe 1,000 words, a couple of pages printed out, and put it into 4 key lines that I need to share. I can also, I'll go ahead and accept that. I can also say, well, you know what? They want to read through this note, comb through it in detail, bit by bit. And this is just me typing. You can see it even says, okay, let's do this. And I probably have misspellings in this note and bad grammar, maybe even duplicate lines and so forth. Once again, I'm going to use AI to help me out. This time I will organize the note. and it's going to take a look at this note and say, all right, let's clean things up. Like I said, the duplicates, let's if it's said twice, it's not going to show it anymore. And it's going through it line by line and really, really sort of cleaning things up, taking out all of my first person. I think that maybe the blah, 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 that's all going to be gone. And when it gets done, there's quite a bit. That's good. And it even cleaned up my summary rather than bullet points. It put that in a nice little paragraph for me of a clean summary. That's great. Now I'm going to take a look at the merged content. This is what it didn't like and what it added. So the red, that's gone out of my content, and the green is what it added in. And it shows me exactly what got cleaned up. Here's a whole paragraph that was duplicated. So just rewrote it and cleaned the whole thing up for me. Just fantastic. And if I like all of these changes, once I have my chance to review, I'll accept those. And my new note is fresh, clean, and ready to go. And I'll share one more with you. Let's say my company is based in Germany, and this summary down below is in English. I want this in German. I'm just going to select a paragraph, a bit of a larger note. All the features that are available to me are still here, but I am going to translate to German. Done. So I get my summary in German, so I can share that with my German colleagues. And it took me just seconds to go through this entire, what used to be a bit of a mess of a note, and really clean things up for me. And if there's any other details about that, those features that are available there, Shelley, that anyone has asked about, feel free to let me know. I'm sure we can whip up an example.
Okay, great. Yeah, we had actually a couple people, and now Patrick just wrote in. We both kind of showed a little bit of the software development brain, but there's actually been a lot of interest in that brain. Obviously, it's a little beyond the scope of our session, but Patrick was wondering if that's available for download. Now, I'm not sure if this our latest brain template. Maybe I can put that in the Q&A as well, but it's in our templates section. And what's kind of cool about us is a lot of companies actually like to charge for their templates and things like that. We make them all publicly available and free on our brain applications. Feel free to email support if you want this brain. It is available for you. It's got a great network map. Yeah, we will send you the link to that.
And you can go to thebrain.com/apps, APPS. You'll find this brain in there. You'll find other brains on a multitude of different topics. So you can find a brain that really speaks to you, your interests, or just find a brain where you just want to sort of play around with the technology, get familiar with it, kick the tires, and download a brain on a topic where you just want to explore the technology of the brain software in a more complex structure rather than starting thought by thought and building your own.
All right. And then we had a few questions in midway in the session about sort of editing and manipulating the results of AI. So that's kind of, so we can we're kind of at the hour, but a little bit of time on mass selection, moving, maybe we do an AI structure and you move certain thoughts above, or you delete another section, add a few thought types. So just to know, once you accept your changes, Dan, sometimes AI is interesting. Sometimes it'll give you a large result set, and you'll love 80% of it, but there's like maybe 20% that you kind of like isn't relevant. I usually will end up keeping something like that AI generates, and then I'll just mass delete those particular thoughts. So again, this is something that we'll cover more in the Brain 101, which is tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, where mass selection and deletion. But because you guys are going to be working with AI, maybe we can just spend a couple of minutes covering how to manipulate, fine tune, and garden these large structures that we create, whether they're with AI or just with your own thoughts.
That's right. So I've really quickly populated an area on holistic heart health. And if I see something in there that, all right, I already have that elsewhere in my brain, I'm not going to be talking about cooking classes. Before I even accept, I can right click on a thought and forget that particular thought.
Oh,
So
so you were
it's,
deleting
yeah,
before you accept. That's interesting. Okay, I
yeah,
actually
yeah.
don't do that. I usually accept and then delete. I guess at the
And
end of
you
the day,
can
you
do
still, but
that
that's a
too.
good way
That's the
too.
beauty
That's
of it. Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So now I've accepted it. And let's say there's a
Mhm.
group of
So,
thoughts that I don't need. So this little group down below, and now we're going to start moving a little more quickly. We're getting into some advanced features, as Shelley mentioned. But if I hold down the control key, and you would do this by holding down the command on a Mac, but control, and I click and drag it to select those three thoughts or unselect a thought. It's sort of like a toggle. So I can control click and control click again removes them. But I'll control click here, and those three thoughts, not interested in and let's just take community support out as well. Sorry, community, but we're going to remove that and we'll get back to that later. I will forget in mass all of those individual, those four thoughts. So forgetting a thought is sort of the equivalent of throwing something in the recycle bin. It's still there. I can recover that data if I want. And that's a pro feature of the brain. I can click on the reports to see all of my forgotten thoughts. I happen to be on that. Shelley and I were talking about this earlier, so I was already on that particular report. If I just go back to all, I can see 356 thoughts in this brain. So reports, we won't get into that. It's a great way to review your data. But I can see all my forgotten thoughts that way, or I can click on view and select show forgotten thoughts or options. There it is, show forgotten thoughts. And they'll be there in your brain. They're sort of grayed out. Then you can right click and either remember that thought or permanently delete it. So it's a two-part, sort of a safety net to delete content. Now, the question also is about moving data around within the brain, not just deleting it, moving it around. Yes, we can do that too. In fact, we can even move it to an entirely different brain. All right, this brain is all about, our current products. I want to move all of my research data that I'm doing into a separate brain. I'm going to be sharing it with a separate team. And I want to just separate the two brains and segment them out. So I've got my current products that we sell and then what's in research. And I'll just start with just this holistic branch right here. I'm going to control click once again, this thought. It's got a lot of child thoughts down below. So I will click on edit and select related thoughts, childward thoughts for, we'll go 6 generations down. Okay. So I've added 30 thoughts into my selection box. This answers 2 questions. Another one that Patrick just wrote in. No, not Patrick, someone else.
are you talking about
About
Marcel about it
getting it into a
dumping part
word.
of a brain into a, I was just gonna
Yeah,
I was literally
yeah,
gonna be like, oh, can you show how to take this
yeah.
into a world? Yes, yes.
There's a lot that
I
you
can
can
see you're
do
reading the
here.
Q&A as well.
I'm
As
trying
you're
to. Yeah,
demo.
they're
You
they're
don't
coming
have
in.
to. I'll let you know.
Yes.
But this is kind of our final question that Marcel did ask. So thank you for
So I can copy
grabbing that.
these. Yeah, I can copy these 30 thoughts and paste them
Mhm.
into another brain. I can create a document with these 30 thoughts. So like a PDF file, and that will include all of their notes. So you have a really in-depth structure and you're about ready to walk into a meeting where people don't have the brain and you want to show them all about this project. Create a document that you can
Or
actually
they just
print
love
out.
Word.
Yeah,
Everyone
or they
loves
just
Word.
love
Yeah.
Word and you want a text outline. Let's do that one. So text outline, and I'm sure I have Word installed. There it is. So I'm launching Word and Control V. There is a text outline of all of the thoughts currently in my selection box. You can also grab a text outline and include the notes as well. And sure, you might want to go in here and reformat, make some things bold, what have you, but that's the basic structure that you just copied. The brain does have some import capabilities we didn't cover today, export capabilities. Like I said, you can export to a document. You can export an entire brain to a file and folder directory. And we also have, let's not even go there now, but APIs available. So you can export the entire brain to an API or utilize API with the brain to make the brain your interface for a custom database that you've built. There's really a lot that you can do there. So this is just scratching the surface as far as what some of the export capabilities are.
All right, great. And then just a final note on export or kind of viewing a brain, not in a brain.
Hmm.
on our cloud, there's an option to view this brain, not in just the standard directory view. I
Ah,
don't know if you
yes.
have this brain shared or if you want to show that real quick. But
Yeah.
that could
So
also be a nice option for people on a directory style menu oriented look at, send them a link to your brain on the cloud, and they can select to view it without the Plex.
So I am launching this brain, and actually, I'm not sure if I'm logged in on the cloud. It's going to tell me. Yes, I am.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
because this is not a public brain. I don't think. Maybe it is. I can find out. I'll go up to online brain access and sharing. And no, it is not publicly
Mhm.
accessible, but I'm logged in, so I can see my own brain online. I can add new thoughts into the brain just as I can on the desktop. I can add new notes. And what Shelley was mentioning, let's click back up to sort of the home thought for this particular brain. Maybe, Shelley and I have been with the brain for a while, and I love the Plex. I only navigate through the brain with the Plex. That being said, some people want a more linear structure, like a like
Yeah.
a like a website you would visit. So I'm going to turn the Plex off. I'm going to turn the visual map off. And now you can see I've got a couple of jump thoughts over here on the left, my clients and distributors. Here's my Scout Health Solutions, and all of the subcategories are child thoughts. So let's take a look at that medication. Again, my jump thoughts over on the left, or siblings in this case. Here's my jump thoughts, other companies. Let's get into LifeRx. There's my note. Here's my pin, or my tag rather. Down below, my child thoughts with their file attachment. So I can launch this file attachment from the cloud. I can see that Shelley's reviewing this. We set that up earlier. It's a high priority item. There's that nice long note. I'll click on continue reading. And I've got the entire note there available for me and all of its sibling thoughts. It falls under LifeRx. So I'm navigating through the brain without the Plex in an outline format, a text-based outline format.
Yeah.
And
So
at
there's
any
many
time I can see.
ways
Yeah.
to look at your data, share your data, to organize your data. And what works for you and your team is what's going to be the best knowledge base for you. So, and I think with that, we've covered a lot of ground. Thank you for everyone for staying beyond the hour to hear the answers to some of the questions. Matt, any other bells and whistles or words of wisdom you want to share with the group before we close our
Yes,
session today?
Yes, actually, I just looked at the setup, and in the summertime, we switched to an every other weekend Brain 101. We mentioned Brain 101. Our next class is next Friday, so you've
Okay,
got plenty of
fair
time to
enough. Yeah.
prepare. Sign up next Friday, 101. And 101 is where I'll be hosting the 101, and I really, really break it down to we start from scratch. If this is your first time seeing the brain, do not feel overwhelmed. Join a Brain 101, and you'll see that I create a brain in actually 5 to 10 minutes. I create a structured brain where all my data moving forward will be housed, personal information, work related information, files, documents, web pages, and so forth. Really break it down bit by bit in Brain 101. And we can get through all the questions. The class sizes are typically smaller. And I can get through all the questions that you may have. So it's really like a direct one-on-one in the Brain 101. Feel free to join me next Friday. And that's it.
Okay. Right. Okay. And with that, I think we're going to close today's session. We are going to probably stay tuned for more future brain technology events. And if you do have any questions or want any example brains, feel free to chat to us through the website or email us at support@thebrain.com. And we look forward to learning more about how you are using the brain for your business and research, whether it's AI or manually created thoughts. Hopefully you'll get to where you need to go by visualizing your information. So thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.